Hi Henry, how are you?
Good, thanks, Olga. How are you?
I'm good, I'm good. Very exciting. We're back for 2025 and that's our first one of the year. So I thought we would do something a little bit different and meet one of Tax Assure's real superstars. I like to say sometimes,
Nice.
Henry, you're a bit of a magician. You're the ones getting these amazing results. You would feel it and see it and hear it firsthand. The difference between how stressed clients are when we first talk to them and that first conversation compared to the utter relief once you've got them protected in an arrangement is that like night and day.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time, a lot of the time, probably that is true, and that is the nicest feeling in the job when you can, particularly when someone comes with perhaps I don't know say misconception, but just a lack of understanding about what sort of their potential options are, and that's just what we do day in day out. So um, it's not like rocket science, but we just know what can be achieved and how to achieve it, and that can often be a really great solution for people compared to what is being sort of sold or to them, or they're being warned about or threatened with by the tax office or people sort of less knowledgeable about what can be done. So yeah, that's something that's really nice to be able to offer people.
So one of the things I thought we would go through today are some case studies. We'll change some names around. Obviously people would come to us because of the privacy. So there was one matter that you and I worked on together, and I'm going to call this person Jane. And they were told they had to sell their house. So when I took the phone call, she was told there was no option other than to sell her house. She had a $250,000 debt and was on the verge of saying, okay, I've got to sell my house to save my business. Do you
Hmm.
want to talk us a bit through once you got involved as well on what we were able to do for her and how the life changing really night and day, so to speak, between having to sell her house to where she now is after you helped her?
Yeah, I think I know the one you're talking about, and it's sort of um, it's something you see a fair bit, particularly on those kind of. I mean, yeah, the debts that are sort of out of people's control, but are sort of manageable, maybe in that kind of few $100,000 of debt, which is obviously daunting and it certainly keeps you up at night. But there is a sort of pathway back from that for sure, as there is from any if that's the right option. Um, and yeah, people, everyone's got their own opinions on what should be done, and whether that's sort of selling your house, which might or might not be the right option, or borrowing money, or a small business restructure, or something. But everything has its pros and its cons, and consequences of doing that. So yeah, that was a really nice one. They were all very daunting options for her, and her business was a really good business, really actually exciting business. Yeah, really enjoyed learning about it, and it was it was nice to be able to offer something that was offering her a solution to just work directly with the ATO, not get involved in any of those other things around selling stuff, borrowing money off other people. Just work with the ATO, get sort of in many ways just a bit more time to let the business sort itself out, and yeah, and come back from there and get back on track, back to where she wanted to be all along.
So we got her into a payment arrangement. We were able to do that within 3 weeks of her first finding us. The payment arrangement was completely affordable with her cash flow, didn't put extra stress on the business, and she had some big projects coming in down the track, which would increase that cash flow. And then by being in a payment arrangement, it also stops any further action. So it protected her from credit reporting, it protected her from director penalty notices or anything else that the ATO were looking at coming after her in that regard. And how relieved was she at the end compared to at the beginning?
Oh yeah, no, immensely, and so you touched on that there, that there was contracts coming through and stuff, and whatever that might look like when a client comes and there's some sort of plan for the future, but just uncertainty about how they're going to bridge that, whatever it is, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. And, we can work with the ATO and sort of build a bridge over that period of uncertainty. Then, yeah, I mean, people do. It's not something. It's easy to minimize in your head, but the thought of having hundreds of thousands of dollars hanging over you, losing your business, losing your house, etc., etc. It's easy to see when you think about it how it can keep you up at night, and it seems like it certainly does to people.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nice when people say that they're going to get a good night's sleep that night.
And you touched on something else there. You said you really enjoyed learning about her business. Sometimes people say to me, and I'm sure you hear this a lot, oh, your job must be so boring. All you do is like numbers and debt. Whereas to me, our job is about the people and the stories and their businesses and what's behind it. The numbers and the debt are sort of secondary.
It's quite a good job in that respect because if I don't want to tell someone about it, I just say tax, and they're like, say no more.
It's not an as bad job.
Enough said.
Yeah, and I think that's why for us it is really about helping people, and it's not just about the numbers. But there's so much that goes on, I think, behind the curtain in people's lives that lead to these debts, and that's the things that we're talking to people about, and also talking to the ATO about in these arrangements, which I suppose leads us to another matter that you worked on recently, which related to a whole heap of cows dying. Did you want to give us a little bit of a background of the story in that matter?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was heartbreaking, really. And it was quite, I've
Yeah.
come from a farm anyway, so it was a bit of a sort of nice personal one for me to get involved in. But yeah, I mean, sort of high level, they just obviously with droughts that have been going on in Australia for however long they were going on for, and it was just unsustainable, and the cows are dying, and it was all a bit horrible, really. And just before the rains came, the banks stopped giving them money, and they ended up having to sell all the cattle, and that came with its sort of tax implications of the money they gained from that. Um, but yeah, just another sort of really honest, genuine client who does absolutely everything they can to try and address the debt as quickly as possible. And they borrowed money off some high interest lender, and yeah, had paid that debt back. So they ended up just left with the interest charges, which thankfully we were able to come in and get knocked off, and yeah, give them a nice little bit of payback after all their hard work and heartbreak. So yeah, that was really nice.
Yeah, you're very, very humble. And I think some of the figures in that one, I think from memory, they borrowed at around 20%. And as you mentioned, they'd paid the full ATO debt off. And what we were looking at is they'd already paid the interest. The
Mm.
interest was a significant amount. It was about 250,000. And our task was an accountant had contacted us on whether or not they'd already been denied. They'd tried to get it back. They'd
Mm.
been denied, and an accountant contacted us because the 20% on that 250,000 was huge, and to see whether or not we would be able to do a successful application, even though they'd paid the interest, to then get it back. Which we were able to do, so they could then pay off that high interest loan. They still had a portion of the loan for the remainder of the debt, but the business, it's been raining, and the business was back on track. So a lot of these businesses, both of these examples, are viable businesses. They do need the time, as you mentioned. They need a bit of breathing space. And I really liked how you talked about that bridge. So it's a bit like a bridge between something that's gone wrong or something that's gone bad that wasn't anticipated for. It's not a bad business. They're not going to go under. They don't necessarily need an event of insolvency, but they do need help in moving forward.
Yeah, and that's really the obviously, like we were saying, there's no real profile to a client, which is quite a sort of interesting thing about the job because everyone and
Yeah.
every business pays tax, so anyone could accrue a tax debt in that way. But I think, yeah, it's nice when someone comes with a somewhere that they want to be, and you can help them build towards there rather than just a steady decline. Which there's also merit in that if you can buy someone time to get their ducks in a row um, and yeah, and make the decisions that need to be made, whether they're easy or hard decisions. So yeah, just to be able to sort of achieve someone's objectives in the sort of short or long term is what we do. And I think you touched on sort of, perhaps accountants not getting the interest or the payment plans. Or I think a lot of that just comes from sort of, us doing this all the time and just understanding what the ATO is looking for, what the parameters are, how to present that to them, just packaging it up in the right way, and just getting the outcome.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a huge part of what we do. And I always say it, and you'll reiterate this. You've never done a BAS. You've never lodged a BAS. You don't know how to do a BAS. You don't know how to lodge a BAS. We don't do any of the compliance work. What's the biggest debt you've been looking after?
Oh well, they get up into the millions and millions, don't they? And I think maybe 14 million or something. But it's all relative to the turnover as well, sort of what can be achieved. So when they get really big and you're dealing with sort of CEOs and external accountants and stuff, it all gets a bit interesting at that point.
Yeah. I've been asked this week by someone going, "Oh, I assume all your clients are businesses and you don't really deal with people." But what I think everyone forgets is no matter how many millions, how many zeros, how big a business is, there's always people. There is always an owner. There's always a CEO. There are always people, and that's what we do. We're talking to the people, regardless of the size of the business or whether it's a publicly listed company or whether it is your tradie. There's always a person.
Yeah, there's always a person. I think that when it's just a smaller one or someone on their own or something, then you do have that real personal relationship. When it gets to like a big company and there's all these lawyers and accountants and CEOs and directors and someone's dropped the ball. Everyone's probably dropped the ball. Everyone's pointing the fingers. I always end up being about 25 years younger than everyone else, so everyone tries to point the finger at me. But they're interesting. They're always interesting as well. Sometimes I have to bring you in to fight my corner for me.
Yeah. And a big part of that is we are so specialised. So we're not treading on anyone's toes. The lawyers can do their things, the accountants can do their things, a funder can do their things, and we're happy to just stick in our little lane, fix our little bit using the expertise. And I often say we work in parallel with all of those other people that you mentioned to get the client to where they need to be at the end of the day, which I think is a really nice thing about our business, is that we're not, like I said, treading on toes. We're not competing for work. We do our thing. And I would rather we weren't the last port of call. I reckon we should be the first port of call. So when there is a lodgement when there is debt or something's gone wrong, we all hear me talk about my frog. And how much I love the frogs, that we need to do the thing that's difficult and deal with it, because as you would know, the earlier we get involved, the easier it is, if easy is a word, for you and the team to get the best possible arrangements for clients.
Yeah, no, honestly, I couldn't agree more. It's like if people could come to us after one BAS that they can't pay, and just getting something where you just be really proactive about it, then there is a lot of scope to work with the ATO, rather than sort of just ignoring their calls for years and just finding that the situation's blown way out of control. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. But obviously in reality that's not usually the case.
And I often talk about pub talk, which is myths. So people, when they get down the pub, they have these myths. Do you have obviously I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway for a bit of a myth buster. Do you have a direct line to your favourite person at the ATO that you can just ring up and go, "Hey Bob, can you do me a favour?"
No, not really. Obviously, you get to know your sort of way around the ATO a little bit and get to know different people at different levels. So there is an element of it, but certainly I wish I had a hotline to the people I wanted to speak to all the time. But there's a bit of a horses thing as well.
No secret special hotline. Yeah, so there's established relationships because you are talking to these debt teams all day, every day, and different people, and their approval levels and what they can do, but no direct hotline where you can just two seconds and make magic happen. It is about the preparation and the applications and the submissions and the knowledge that goes behind it.
Yeah, I think that's true. And, there is an element of sort of knowing people. Someone an old client who we're not acting for currently, but they've ended up really on a real sticky wicket. They're staring down the barrel of getting wound up. But the lady who's the ATO who's taken them down that path is someone I've worked with previously. So she gave me a call and see whether we could work together, because I think, not that we have a hotline, but I think that us understanding the system and what they want and how they want it packaged up, that doesn't just work for the client, that also works for the ATO, that they enjoy someone who's able to. I guess it's the same as sort of a finance broker goes to the bank and packages things in the right way, so the bank makes the bank's life easier. We're sort of that kind of same role, but for the ATO. So yeah, they enjoy working with that, and that then they're not going to get mucked around, and we're going to play with a straight bat and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's sort of that kind of not just working for the client, also sort of making the ATO's life easier as well. So yeah, it's kind of a bit of a brokering role in that respect.
Yep. Do you have any hot tips or one or two top tips that if people were in debt or find themselves in debt, or they're watching this, they've Googled ATO debt or I need help or debt reduction, and it's the middle of the night and they're watching us right now, completely stressed and not sleeping. Do you have any tips around that from doing this all day, every day, about what their next steps, what they should be doing, and how we can actually help?
Yeah, I think sort of speaking to the ATO is better than not speaking to the ATO for sure. Burying your head in the sand's just going to make it worse, because the ATO they do sort of count up times that they've called you, and then they will start to sort of escalate. Until you actually do have a court date, there's always a way back. Even when you have a court date, until you actually are in court, there's always a way back, and there's always a payment plan to be had, even if you have millions of dollars of debt. So yeah, there's always an option. It's always worth speaking to them, or getting someone to speak to them on your behalf. I'd say that if there's a lot of people at the ATO, so if you're speaking to someone and they're not helping you, have a cup of tea and try again. someone will try and help you.
Yeah. The outcomes that you've achieved for people that have thought there was absolutely no hope are quite incredible. And the amount of businesses, we should do some stats. I haven't added it up. I don't know whether you've done any of these stats of how many businesses you've saved over your time at Tax Assure, but that I think would be a cool stat to have a look at, and a lovely thing for you. And exactly right, that there is hope for people, even if they haven't been able to achieve it, if they've been told they have to sell their house, or they've been told they won't get a payment plan in a particular way. I probably would say 4 out of 5 people that you help have already been told no, or have been told that nothing can be done. Yeah. And when we come in with the expertise that you were just mentioning, we can get different outcomes.
I think that's true. And I think a big thing at the moment, they're sending out these credit default letters, which are crippling people really. So yeah, to be able to get into a payment plan, come back from there, get that off your file, improve your credit rating, and then that opens up options for borrowing or just running lines of trade credit. So stuff like that, just sort of simple solutions to crippling problems, and just how a small bit of work can make someone's situation a lot better. I think that that's just a big thing of sort of speaking to the ATO and just addressing the problem and realizing that these things that are keeping you up at night are actually resolvable.
And by you saying they're simple, I think just speaks 1,000 words. So for us, they are simple. So sometimes it is a phone call or finding the right expert that's a bit like a shield between the stressed taxpayer and the ATO. Because for us, it is simple. For us, it is a routine solution and a variety of solutions that people don't even realize are available to.
No, 100%. I think that's what can be achieved, what sort of payment plan's reasonable, how long that could go on for. There's no point if they can only do 36 months. There's no point putting a 37-month arrangement to them. It's going to be knocked back at the first instance. So it's small things like that, and how to present the financial information, so that they can read it and just not say, oh, too difficult, send it back. So stuff like that, I think, is how is yeah makes that sort of makes that repetition, just doing it all the time, understanding it, makes it kind of a difficult thing an easy thing.
And if someone says to you or comes to us and says the ATO won't give me any more than 12 months, that's not a hands in the air moment for us. That's all right, let's see what I can do, and I can do much better than that.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think even on the most difficult ones, and you come into that sort of back and forth negotiation, discussing how cash flow is going to look in the future, what's gone on, bit of toing and froing, and and quite often, well, or very often, you'll end up much longer arrangements than that, and much sort of more favourable outcomes. Yeah, so I'll get my teeth into that sort of stuff.
You're very humble. So thank you for all of your hard work, your humbleness. We're also and very personable. So I do hope that if people are watching this when they're very stressed, to know that there are friendly faces on the other end of the phone. There are solutions for a lot of people, and different ways to approach things. So thank you for joining us today,
I
Henry.
think that's it. Sort of,
Yeah.
they're stressed out, but it's not going to stress me out. So that's the idea.
I love that. I love that. Not much ever stresses you out. As long as there's a burger and a beer at the end of the day, we're all good.
Exactly. Couldn't have put it better myself.